Hi, my name is Stefanie Sydlik, and I am an assistant professor of chemistry and biomedical engineering at Carnegie Mellon University and a co-founder of BioBind. So the problem that BioBind seeks to address is that there is currently no treatment for low-level lead poisoning. And low-level lead poisoning actually causes major intellectual and behavioral disorders. However, even though more than half of all children have a measurable amount of lead in their blood, and this is children in the US, currently only 0.1 million of these children are able to be treated. And these are the children with severely high levels of lead poisoning, greater than 45 micrograms per deciliter. And so what we seek to do with our BioBinder treatment is to expand this target population. And so kind of this 5 to 45 micrograms per deciliter blood lead level is extremely concerning to doctors, but there is currently no clinical treatment option. And so we feel this is a really important market opportunity that could expand the current market of $20 million to $360 million with BioBind if we are able to treat children with blood lead levels of greater than 5 micrograms per deciliter. And so our solution is in our patent pending BioBinder. And so what we do is take chelators, which are currently FDA approved for chelation therapy, and bind them with a chemical bond to a sugar molecule. And so the reason that chelators, which are used to treat these higher levels, are not indicated for lower levels is because they themselves are toxic. And this is a problem because they are so small, they can kind of stealthily get into places where they aren't supposed to be in the body. However, once we create this chemical bond, we bind them to kind of this big fluffy sugar molecule. And this allows the chelator to still bind to our metals and safely remove lead, but it provides a safe passage through the body because the body only recognizes that large sugar molecule and safely passes it. And this allows for kind of saving us from all of those detrimental effects of lead poisoning. And we're better than the competition. So currently for these low levels of lead poisoning, environmental abatement is what is recommended. But this does not actively remove lead from the body. And so the other drugs are too unsafe for these low levels. So here we have kind of where we are in vitro studies. And we're looking to raise $50 million over the next few years to allow for an exit at a profit of $360 million. So with that, this is our team. And hopefully I've convinced you biobinders are the future of treatment of lead poisoning.
So somebody's going to have to pay that extra cost. Like today, there isn't a viable solution. And I'm wondering, who do you think is going to pay for this? Do you think it's going to be parents? Is it going to be insurance? And where do you stand in that process?
So currently, this is kind of our this is our conservative estimate for this. Is we do know that doctors do want to treat this 5 micrograms per deciliter, but there isn't a safe way to do it currently. So we feel that doctors will prescribe and then insurance will cover this 5 microgram per deciliter level. Personally, being, ever the optimist and the dreamer that I am, I think we're actually safe enough that we could treat those down to 1 microgram per milliliter. And something that low, I think we actually do have the potential for an over-the-counter therapy. Just because, here in Pittsburgh, we do have problems with lead in the drinking water. And I do know people who have children who are concerned about these levels, but there's nothing they can do right now. And so that's kind of our vision for how this is. And we've, with our customer discovery, been talking with insurance companies and doctors and, parents who seem to be interested in this as well.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Stephanie. I'm just going to kind of let you continue along that same line. I kind of want to know, why do you think there hasn't been any successful, why don't you have any successful competition? And what's the difficulty with it? And why is yours subject to make $360 million?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I think the reason that this has not yet been solved is typically organic chemists focus on small molecules, kind of that active part of the molecule that is able to grab the metals and remove it. But small molecules are small and they can get themselves into trouble because of that. Now, using a larger molecule is something that has been shown to not have the interactions. Typically, they are much safer. And no one has taken a large molecule approach to this yet. And so that's the innovation we bring is I'm a polymer chemist by training. My PhD is in organic chemistry, but then I went on to do engineering and biomedical engineering in my postdoc. And so kind of looking at the synergy from those two sides, we're bringing something new to it.
Thank you, Stefanie, for a great presentation. You talk about the low-level lead poisoning and higher levels causing major intellectual and behavioral disorders. Is there anything you know from the studies that you've read that links that to, some of the things that we think about now that might have a larger application for your BioBind, such as autism or other areas that develop from, and forgive me for my lack of medical experience, but that develop from levels of lead? Is there any expanded research, that shows further problems?
Yep. And so you mentioned autism, and that is one of kind of these other developmental disorders. But one of the very, I kept on bringing up intellectual function and IQ points because it's quantifiable. And actually, the low-level lead poisoning is responsible for, because more children are affected, a summation of more IQ points lost than these higher levels, which is why we would want to address it. But not everyone needs to be a genius, but we do want to, interact in society in kind of a normal and comfortable way. Unfortunately, those have fewer quantifiables to them, and the research is still being done to show exactly which of these types of behavioral disorders are associated. But yeah, those are the types of things that you're looking at. And I think the research, as they do more research into this low-level lead poisoning, they're finding more and more kind of these drawbacks.
Hi, Dr. Sydlik. Just a question: if we're looking for low-level lead, of lead poisoning, what are the symptoms that would lead someone to put a child through that? I mean, to isolate that it might be low lead versus something else.
So actually environment has a lot to do with it. And so kind of my husband's a pediatrician, as is Brian, who actually just had a son. He normally would be here with me today, but has worked closely with me on starting this company. So both of our significant others are pediatricians, and what they tend to bring children in for is this failure to thrive. And so you can tell something is wrong with your child. They aren't quite hitting their developmental milestones on track. And this becomes one of the things that they'll test for. In Pittsburgh, where we're located, there is lead in our, we have an old plumbing system, not plumbing, drinking water system. And so there is lead in our pipes. And so for us, it's kind of one of the first things they test for when children fail to thrive, because it is a very simple blood test that would give them this information.
If nothing else, to knock it out, that it's not the cause.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Thanks.